Hey guys, Schulte Phillips here. Welcome to my July 25th DVD update. We talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I always say, guys, if you enjoy these updates, definitely give this video a thumbs up. Leave me comments below on what you guys thought of the titles I checked out and reviewed in this update, and any future titles coming up that you'd like me to review for future updates. Now, the first one I got from Shout Factory Scream Factory line is Ghost Town. This is one I had never seen before. I always remembered seeing the cover to this one, and I always heard people talk about this one. I think I remembered seeing this years ago when it was, I think it might have been on DVD years back. I might be totally wrong though, or VHS or something. I remember seeing it at Tower Records and always looking at it. That was one of the places I always remembered seeing this one, you know, in the late Tower Records. It was really weird too when I watched this. In the very beginning of the movie, I'm like, wait a minute, because like the music, the opening theme music to the opening credits, I'm like, wait a minute, what is this from? I'm like, oh, it's from Ghoulies 2. So it was like kind of weirding me out a little bit, just because I was like, oh, this is the Ghoulies 2 music opening this movie. But it turns out like that the composer, they didn't like a lot of his music or something, and since it was produced by Charles Band and he produced, you know, Ghoulies 2 as well, they kind of used music from other movies that he did at the time, you know, to kind of fill it, and they only used a few of the actual themes. It was kind of just like weird to actually hear that music in this, because I was always so used to hearing that music, you know, opening Ghoulies 2, the opening scene of them in the car and all that, talking about the magic moon and all that. But the movie's basically though about this cop who's in this kind of Arizona kind of deserty town, and this one girl ends up going missing, and her, you know, she's like pulled from her car and taken to this ghost town. He ends up kind of following the, you know, out there and trying to figure out where she is, and ends up stumbling into this ghost town where everybody's a ghost, everything is all ghost, and it's kind of like him there figuring out what is going on and trying to figure out how he's going to be able to save this girl. It's a pretty cool movie though. There's some really pretty cool sequences in this with like the ghosts and stuff like that and kind of disappearing. And I think it was shot where they filmed a whole bunch of like Old West shows and things like that. I recognize it from a lot of different movies, like a whole bunch of movies have shot out there. I don't know if it's still out there, if it still exists anymore, but I know up until like 2006, I think they were still shooting in this old town. But he's basically out there, and there's a one huge like outlaw that's kind of, what basically happens though is he ends up stumbling upon the body of the old sheriff. The old sheriff says, "You have to save my town," and then he puts the badge onto him, and that's how he kind of gets into this town to find the girl. And then there's a kind of a bad villain in this town who's taken her hostage, and he's all like screwed up. And it was kind of weird too, because like some of the people in the ghost town kind of look normal, others of them look all rotted and ghostly and like deathly. So they have like, there's a lot of different kind of looks of the ghost town people there. And I don't know, I really like this movie. It's just a fun, weird movie about him trying to save her from this villain and trying to figure out how he's going to get out of this town. It was actually pretty cool though, and I thought it has a really pretty cool, good transfer in this one as well. The next one is one that I have heard about for years. I think it came out to DVD in other countries under the name Coffin Baby. And I kind of want to see that edition too, because I know there's like differences between them. Like certain things were shot. Like I don't know for sure all of the story behind this, but I know there's a whole lot of like stories behind this movie. And I remember there was like a Indiegogo or something like that, as far as I can remember, to finish scenes for that. So I don't know if those scenes were finished for this edition or the Coffin Baby one. But this is Toolbox Murders 2, which is another one, like I said, that I had been wanting to see for a long time. Thought, you know, this is a sequel to the remake of Toolbox Murders that Tobe Hooper did, which I liked a lot. You know, Sherry Moon Zombie was in the original remake of this, which was actually a pretty cool movie. This is a very, very strange movie, and like some, you know, kind of cameos, which I can kind of feel like a couple of them, like the Ethan Phillips cameo and things like that, were probably shot later because they had a different kind of camera look to them, or something like that was going on. But the movie's basically though about the killer from the first movie, and it's relatively a sequel, but not exactly, because it's not really in like in that apartment building like the other one was. But he ends up taking this woman hostage and basically, you know, locking her up in this cage, and he brings in people, and he's basically murdering them while she's watching, and he's kind of like torturing her and like making her watch these things on the TV, which are like weird music videos of like murders that he's made and things like that. And that's essentially what it is. And Bruce Dern is in this. Like, I like randomly, I thought, is Bruce Dern just going to be like an extra, like sitting on this chair? Because you only saw him real quick, and then like you see him later in the movie. But I'm like, wait a minute, is that all he did? But he's like, no, he's in more of the movie. But I actually kind of like this movie. I know it's not perfect. I know it has a lot of flaws technically, but I kind of like the outcome of this movie. And like I said, I know it's not perfect, and I know they had a lot of production problems with this movie from what I've heard. But I kind of liked some of it. I really did. Like I said, it's like I kind of liked it for its flaws, but it's actually, I'd say, worth checking out though, just to see kind of a weird kind of movie. The next one is one that I heard a lot about. It's from Scream Factory as well, and this is Wyrmwood, Road of the Dead. And this movie definitely has like a Mad Max kind of Road Warrior vibe, zombie movie feel to it. The movie, it's an Australian film, and basically like there's like a comet that came, and all these people have starting to turn into zombies little by little. And it kind of starts in the very beginning of when this is happening, and this one girl ends up getting kidnapped by these kind of people in gas masks and things like that, taken to this facility where there's this crazy doctor who's doing all these experiments and things like that. Kind of remind me like with the experiments of like Day of the Dead, doing all kinds of tests on them and trying to figure out, how to change them and, creations and things like that with the zombies and things like that. And sort of just, that's basically what he's doing. And the brother of this girl, finds out she's kidnapped, and he goes on kind of a mission to try and find her with these other group of these other guys that he finds. And there's like scenes of them like in all these kind of like armor and things like that to fight the zombies. And there's a lot of cool scenes in cars and stuff like that. Like I said, that's why it has like the Road Warrior Mad Max kind of vibe to the movie. Has on here though a commentary track, some crowdfunding videos, and then like a making of behind the scenes thing as well. But this is a very, very cool, different take on a zombie movie. Very, very stylized film. Would definitely recommend checking this out too. It's a really cool Australian, zombie film. The next one from Severin Films. This is one that I have been really excited to see because I actually really love the remake of this movie, the movie that this documentary is about, the Island of Dr. Moreau remake, with Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando. Like I remember seeing that in theaters as a kid. I never knew that it kind of had like this history behind it until recently when I was reading the facts about it. But like I said, I always liked it. I actually went and rewatched it again after I watched this because I had to see it again. Because I used to kind of obsess about it, to be honest. Like, I don't know why I did, but I really obsessed about that movie. And this is Lost Soul, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau. And this is basically a documentary talking about all the extreme problems and issues that that movie had. And about how Richard Stanley, who, directed Hardwire and Dust Devil, about how he was going to be the director of the remake. He was there, setting up everything, getting the locations. He wrote the script. They used most of his script for the remake, but they changed a lot of it with a new writer that came in and added some stuff. But he was there to do it. And then it wasn't working out. He ended up getting fired, and it kind of talks about how he ended up hiding, but even though he was banned from the set, he kind of went in under makeup and was hiding around the set. And it talks all about the stuff he was doing with voodoo to try and make sure he kept the job. But then the one voodoo guy had something happen to him, and then all the voodoo spells that he went unraveled, and that's when he got fired. And there was all kinds of problems in this thing, and the issues with Val Kilmer and the other director who came in. And it's an amazing documentary. And they get a whole bunch of the cast and crew. They don't talk to the one main guy, the British actor from it, who I always liked that guy, but I feel like he probably didn't want to burn bridges because he's in the Harry Potter movies and really big stuff, and I feel like he didn't want to like talk a lot of shit about the whole thing. I kind of think that might have been why he didn't appear in this. But Fairuza Balk is in this. But an extremely well-made documentary. Another thing, too, if you haven't seen it, I don't think it matters. Like, if you haven't seen this remake, it's kind of like the Best Worst Movie documentary on Troll 2. Like, if you haven't seen that one, it doesn't matter. It's, like, still amazing documentary. Has on here, outtake interviews, and, Barbara Steele talking about how she was going to be in the movie and how that got cut out. But highly would recommend picking this one up, guys. I really thought this was a great documentary. The next one from Universal is Unfriended, and I saw this one in theaters, and I actually like this movie. It's not perfect. I know I was reading that originally it was going to be like a movie for MTV or something like that, and then like the reaction that it got was so strong that they ended up giving it a theatrical release. But the only thing I will say it's a shame though is there's no features on this at all. Like I've never seen in a long time like a Universal release with no features, but I kind of feel like maybe since it was done as a TV movie, they might not have really filmed much behind the scenes or things like that, so there might not be anything, to have put. But, the movie, though, if you guys have not seen it, is basically a group of friends who it's all filmed through Skype, like a webcam like this, and, the one friend of theirs in the beginning that they were picking on because of a video they posted of her when she was drunk, ended up killing herself, and then that girl is basically haunting them, or someone is haunting them, logging into her account and kind of messing around with these kids, and one by one they start kind of attacking themselves and killing themselves, drinking bleach, and all kinds of crazy things happens. And it's actually, I thought, very effectively done, all through no cuts through the camera, and they actually filmed the movie, from what I heard too, in long takes. They just went through the whole hour-and-a-half movie without cuts, and it's very effective. I thought it was pretty well acted too, and really works. Like I said, it was all just webcam done. Like I said, I do wish that it had some kind of a making of or something on it, because it would kind of been cool to see, but still is a very cool movie though. The next one is a Joe Dante film, which is a new movie, one of my favorites, movies I've watched in a while, because I've always loved Joe Dante's movies, and this one is, I think this might be one of the first that I can think of R-rated ones that he's done, at least in a long time. I mean, I think in a long time, except like Howling, but it's been years since he's done a more R-rated movie. And this is Burying the Ex, with Anton Yelchin and Ashley Greene and Alexander Daddario, from, played The Rock's daughter in, San Andreas. But the movie's basically, though, about Anton Yelchin and his girlfriend, played by Ashley Greene. They're, thinking about getting married, and she's kind of doesn't really love, like, she's not really perfect, and he's, he's all wants to do certain things and wants to open up this horror shop and things like that. She kind of passes off what he wants to do, and she's not really perfect for him. He's getting ready to break up with her, and right before he does it, he says, "Meet me at the park." She's crossing the street, gets hit by a car. But earlier in the movie, when they're in the horror shop that he's working in, before he actually wants to have his own shop down the line, he gets in this one thing that's like a devil thing, where they say, "Oh, wish upon this," and he just makes a joke and says, "Oh, I wish we're together forever," just jokingly. And of course, that's what makes what happened in the movie happen, when she gets hit by a car, ends up coming back to life, and and she's basically dead for days, and he ends up meeting, Alexander Daddario's character, and starts liking her, and then basically he doesn't know what to do, because she's coming back, and it's like a real awkward thing with his girlfriend back from the dead, and she starts rotting, and it has like the vibe of the Aubrey Plaza movie that came out recently a little bit, Life After Beth, and My Boyfriend's Back from the Dead, more of a Life After Beth kind of vibe to it. But would definitely recommend checking this out too, especially for horror fans. Like, since he works in the horror shop, there's a lot of like horror references and things like that in this. But a really, really, really cool movie. The next one from Lionsgate, through A24, is Barely Lethal, which is the director of Fanboys. Kyle Newman's new movie. He did Fanboys. I think this is his first movie since that, I think. And I actually like this a lot. It kind of has like a slight Agent Cody Banks kind of vibe to it. A little bit of that kind of spy, more like teen spy kind of movie, so it has that kind of vibe. It has Haley, Steinfeld, from Pitch Perfect 2 and from True Grit, Not a Whole Lot I Can Do for You, Son, and Horseman, and a bunch of different movies. The movie, though, is basically Samuel Jackson's character basically takes kids who are orphans and trains them to be spies, like young spies. And so her whole life, Haley Steinfeld's whole life, is basically being a spy. She hasn't been able to have a family or anything like that, or really do stuff that kids do. And one day she ends up getting in this fight when she's trying to, take out Jessica Alba's character. She falls out of the plane, and she basically makes it look like she's dead so she can finally escape from all this. So she ends up getting making it like she's an exchange student and going to a school, and she basically just wants to go to school and do things that kids actually do, and it's basically about her going to school and like what she does and everything like that. But at the same time, they find out about her being there because of this video of her that goes viral, and it's kind of all the stuff that happens. And I don't know, I like that Steve-O has a funny kind of weird cameo in this movie as well. Samuel Jackson was cool in this. Jessica Alba was in this movie as well. Like I said, it's just a really fun movie. Doesn't have as much spy stuff as you would think at points, but it's more just like her kind of adapting to actually doing kid stuff and trying to get a boyfriend and all that kind of stuff. I really like this movie. I always like these kind of movies, this kind of vibe film, and I thought it was actually pretty good. The next one from Lionsgate as well is Child 44. This is basically, set during the time when it was like Joseph Stalin, was like in Russia and things like that. And it's basically, everyone's saying like, oh, there's no such thing as murderers and all that, and that's like a sickness, and they don't basically believe in that kind of stuff, and they think they basically want to pass it off as not possible and things like that. So there's these kids that are kind of getting killed off, and they kind of don't really want to believe that it's a killer. They kind of want to pass it off as an accident and all that kind of stuff. And it's basically about Tom Hardy's character trying to get to the bottom of this and kind of getting in trouble for kind of trying to look into this and getting demoted and all kinds of problems that are happening for him. And it's him and his wife trying to basically wanting to find the killer of this kid, because other kids are kind of popping up who are getting killed off around him, and that's essentially what it is. It's a movie too you watch more for the performances, because Tom Hardy is really amazing when it comes to kind of falling into characters, like just like Tilda Swinton, who was in Trainwreck, and she, a lot of people didn't even know that was her. I didn't even know that was her until I looked at the credits. Like, he's the same kind of person where he can totally fall into an accent, fall into a character, and that's what this really is a character piece. Gary Oldman is in this as well. I thought this is definitely a really well made, like, kind of historical kind of film in this period piece, and it has on here a featurette too as well in the movie. The next one from Warner Brothers and Lionsgate. This is a bunch of catalog titles, and this is Blast from the Past, which has always been a favorite movie of mine. Is one too that I've always kind of obsessed with. Like, I always sort of dreamed one day they would release like a director's cut of this, or a cut of this movie where the stuff when they were underground in the fallout shelter, like in the beginning, like the first 20 minutes or 10 minutes was actually like an hour long of that, because I don't know, I always loved that part under the fallout shelter. I always thought about, oh, one day if that happened, I'd hide down in a fallout shelter. So I don't know, I always absolutely love this movie. And I remember the first time I saw this movie was because South Park came out in theaters. Wanted to see South Park, but was not allowed to see it because I was too young. So I saw this instead, and I was just kind of like, oh, I'll see this instead because I can't see South Park. That was the first time I saw this movie, and always have loved this. And it's basically though about Christopher Walken and Sissy Spacek, who are pregnant. They believe that this bomb is coming, so they go and hide down the fallout shelter. Of course, it isn't, and they lock themselves down there for, I think it was like 35 years. They've locked themselves down in this thing. And there's upstairs, up above them, everything is going on in life. Everything is normal, but they don't realize that. And they're getting low on supplies. So when Brendan Fraser, who's their kid, is, older, they send him up there to get supplies, and he gets up there and realizes like everything seems fine, and that's basically what it is. And he meets Lisa Silverstone. They kind of become friends, and she's kind of helping him to gather supplies. He's not really saying for what. He doesn't want to talk about what happened, things like that. It's just a really, really great movie. The next one is another classic from Warner Brothers as well, Free Willy. And this is another one that I've always loved as a kid. The movie's basically, though, about this orca whale that ends up putting into this kind of small captivity thing in kind of like a SeaWorld kind of place, and this kid who ends up, kind of like a bad kid who ends up sort of messing around at the SeaWorld kind of place and like doing mischief and messing things up, and he basically, instead of going to jail, they say if you stay here and help out around here, they won't send him to jail. So it's kind of him kind of becoming friends with this orca and kind of helping him, and the orca really responds well to him. And it's kind of also about Free Willy, because they want to get him out of this as well. If you've seen the trailer, you see him jumping over this. It's a real classic thing. But this is a movie that I've always loved since I was a kid, and glad to see this finally released on Blu-ray. Another classic catalog title is another Joe Dante film, Inner Space, which is another one that I've always loved. I feel like this one sometimes is a slightly lesser known Joe Dante movie, and this is basically about a experiment where they're trying to shrink down Dennis Quaid's character and inject him into this animal, and the science factory, the science lab ends up getting raided by these people that want to steal this formula, and the one scientist ends up escaping, running to the mall with his syringe with him in it, shrunken down, injects him into Martin Short's body, and the guy ends up dying, and Martin Short doesn't know what's going on, and he starts hearing things talking in his head and thinks he's going crazy. And of course, it's Dennis Quaid inside his body projecting and saying, you've got to do this, and it's basically him trying to figure out how to get back to the lab and finding the formula that can turn him back, because that was stolen from the lab, and that's essentially what it is. Just a really, really fun movie. All these two have really great transfers. The next one is one that I was really happy to get to see, and this is I Love Lucy, the Ultimate Season 2 Blu-ray. I didn't get to see the first one, And I was really wondering, what this was going to look like on Blu-ray, and because it's totally remastered and really looks good. Like, because it's sometimes when people talk about like, oh, if it's an older show, could it look too much better and things like that. But it really is a great transfer on this, really great detail on this, and it's just crazy to see it as good as it looks. I'm always so used to just seeing the reruns and the old releases of it too, which always looked fine, but were never to this kind of quality. But this has on here, feature-wise, job switching the colorized version. It has I Love Lucy the movie, which was the movie that they were making, that they ended up sort of scrapping and only releasing a number of years back. And it was kind of clips of the show kind of cut together into movie length. And then a bunch of commentaries and flubs and season 2 flashbacks. It also has the original episodes too, with the smoking ads in the beginning and how they actually played out when they were on TV. But it has all the episodes of season 2 in here. It's a little look inside and a story guide. One of the classic ones on here too is the one when they were trying to win redecoration for the house. It's not that when I first read that, I thought it was a redecorating the Mercer's apartment, which was one of my all-time favorite episodes. But this is just, like I say, people, you guys know this show, but I would highly recommend, guys who are wondering about this. I thought the transfer on this was great, though, and definitely worth an upgrade, though, to see it in, HD if you guys are interested in seeing it in that. The next one is a show that I had never seen before and is actually going to be becoming a movie. I think the guy Rich or something is making a movie of this. It's coming out in a couple weeks. This is called The Man from U.N.C.L.E., the complete season 1. I don't know if this has ever been released on DVD in the past before or not, or if this is the first time it's been out or not. It's a 10-disc set, though, but this is one of the first ever, earliest spy shows around. It has on here, though, the episode guide inside, but it's one of the, I believe it's the first kind of spy show that's ever been released, because it's from 1965, I think, or 64, and it's basically, though, kind of like, the one episode was about, these pirates that were taking over the ship, and they were kind of trying to find them, the two main guys that go on these kind of missions to kind of solve the cases, and they have all kinds of spy equipment and spy gear. Like I said, I believe it was before Mission Impossible, the show, and all those kind of things, but a really cool early spy show, which I don't even think they air this on TV much, because I don't ever remember even seeing this, so it's cool that it's released, and like I said, I don't know if this ever had a release before or not. The next one is a cool steelbook release from Arrow, and this is region A and B, so it's it's region free release, or A and B at least. And this is Blood and Black Lace, which is a Mario Bava one that I had never seen before. Very cool, and I think I can show everything inside of here. Yeah, pretty much everything inside here. Here's a little look, though, inside of this. But the movie, though, is basically about a bunch of these models that are kind of, they're having this kind of show, like a, what would you say, like a fashion type show, it's like Fashion Week, and they're all together for this Fashion Week, and someone is wearing this mask, this faceless mask, which a lot of movies kind of copied that. I feel like this mask that he wears in the movie, this kind of thing. I've seen other things totally have this, and basically are killing them off. It's kind of a wondering who's who and who's doing it. But a very, very cool movie on here. A bunch of different features on here, some interviews and things like that. But, a documentary, too, on the thing. Would definitely recommend this, though. Like I said, this is not one of the Mario Bava ones that I had not seen, but very pretty cool. Before its time, too, with some of the things in this. The next one from Anchor Bay. It's another one that has actually someone with the same kind of mask face, and this is Always Watching, Marble's Hornet's Nest story. And this is basically about this group of these news, it's all on found footage, and it's like a news crew that's following around these people that kind of clean out old abandoned houses or houses that have been foreclosed and things like that, and kind of go in there and take stuff out. They go with them and end up finding this box of these tapes in there, and they kind of go, oh, can we have them? They're like, oh, you can have them if you want them. So the one guy, the editor, is kind of looking through these tapes, and he's finding this footage of all these families' videos, and in the background of these videos, he's seeing this guy in them, and he's seeing him all the time, and it's like he's in the background of this, and background of like a party, and always like lurking around these videos. So it's kind of a little bit like Sinister, kind of a little bit, but of course, so once he starts seeing this, then he starts seeing them in his own house. And he looks back at videos that he's filmed, and the guy is there. And that's essentially what it is. It's kind of him trying to figure out what is going on, and why this is happening, why he's now being haunted by this guy. It was actually pretty creepy, though. It plays out pretty good. I actually kind of thought this was a pretty cool one. The next one, this one was kind of odd, because it was like not the kind of movie that you would think Billy Bob Thornton was in. neither James Marsden, because it's kind of a weird movie. Like, I always loved though killer bear movies, but this was not the most interesting killer bear movie, to be honest. I mean, it's okay. Um, it's called Into the Grizzly Maze. You know, I like Jason Marsden. He was great in the D Train and a bunch of different movies. And Billy Bob Thornton was cool in this, but it was basically though about this woman who goes out kind of studying things in the woods, and there's this killer bear that's out there killing people off, and it's kind of about Jason Marsden going out there to try and find her, and Billy Bob Thornton's a hunter who's out there, and it's basically them being trapped out there by this killer bear coming after them, and killing them off and things like that, and trying to survive out there. And like I said, it's okay. But there's been a lot of different killer bear movies, but there hasn't been one in a long time. I think there's another one coming out from IFC called Backcountry, I think, which is another one that looks interesting. But it was not that great, to be honest with you. I mean, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more with this. It was just okay. The next one from Sony as well is Lake Placid versus Anaconda. And this mainly what it is because Robert Englund is in this. He was in the last Lake Placid 4, I think, as well. So it's his same character coming back in this. And it's basically, though, about this group of people who've kind of taken captive the, giant, alligator and, this Lake Placid, the anaconda. And of course, they end up getting loose and then getting loose out into the forest, and there's basically people who are out there all getting killed. There was some really ridiculous stuff about this one with Hunter and his son, which I wish was in more of this movie, when they end up getting killed, and there's like a million little alligators that are coming after him, and then a group of these friends that go out there camping, by the lake, and of course they're all getting killed off one by one, and they need Robert Englund to kind of hunt and get them back again, because he's the only one that can actually captive the, Lake Placid alligator. It was a fun movie. There was some really, really silly deaths in this movie, though. The next one from Twilight Time is the World of Henry Orient, and this is a limited edition to 3,000 units release, sold on the Screen Archive website, and this is basically a movie about these two girls who are kind of going around. It was kind of a fun idea of the movie. They go around and kind of just sort of screw around in the day during school. Like, they ditch school and kind of go around in New York City and kind of like go on their own kind of weird adventures and do all kinds of weird things out there. And they end up, meeting, it was, blanking on the actor's name, Peter Sellers, who's this musician who's out there, and the one kind of gets a crush on him, and they're kind of like lurking around, kind of following him around everywhere that he's going, and it's kind of like they become like kind of obsessed with following him around and going where he's going, and that's pretty much what the movie is. It has on here an isolated score, auto commentary of film historians, and the theatrical trailer. Really good transfer on this one. Just a really fun early 60s movie, just with Peter Sellers in a different kind of role rather than Pink Panther. The next one from Vertical Entertainment is I Live, from the director of Maniac. This is another one that was just okay. Like, I kind of hope for a little bit more with this movie. He's also directing the new Amityville movie, which I'm really interested in seeing that one. But this one is basically this kid who does YouTube videos and doesn't have any money and kind of needs to make some money, so he's going and testing out apps on his phone and kind of reviewing them and thinking that's kind of going to make him famous on YouTube or get him views by getting paid to do these apps. And it's one app that he gets called I Lived, where it's like it would make all your dreams come true, but you've got to it puts up prompts on your phone like, help this lady across the street. Of course, when you have to film it with your phone, so I Lived knows that you're doing it. Then it shares them to your profile on the app site. And of course, though, when he does this, things start working, because it's like, if you do this, you'll get this girlfriend. If you do this, you'll sleep with this person. If you do this, you do that. But then, of course, things start going good, and as soon as he stops doing it, logs out of this, things start going terribly wrong, and that's what it is. It's like deaths happen, all kinds of crazy things. It was okay. Just wasn't executed totally perfectly, and Maniac, the remake, was such a masterpiece movie. It really was. That it was just, I think it's really going to be hard to live up to that, because it was just such a great movie. It's okay, though, but nothing that I would say is like groundbreaking. And I kind of think they should have done the whole movie found footage. Found footage, there's so much of that, but I kind of think it should have all been done that way a little bit. It might have worked a little bit more. The next one from Film Rise, and this is one that I really wanted to see because I haven't had this happen to me in a long time, but I actually have had these kind of things happen. That sleep paralysis thing where you know, sleeping and you can't move and you see weird, crazy things. And usually it happened to me more when I was really heavy, you know, like 400 plus pounds and stuff. But that was when I was having it happen to me a lot, and I would hear like people saying things about me. You know, it was really weird stuff that happens, and like, but that's why I wanted to see this. I could have been one of the people on here discussing it. But it's called The Nightmare, and the guy who directed this directed, you know, Room 237, which was, you know, the movie about The Shining, where the people went and got really nuts and like talked about every detail. Well, I believe that this meant this with the sign of this, and the signs of this means that. If you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. It was kind of like obsessive. But I liked it, though, a little bit, but it was just really obsessive. This was a better movie, though. At least to me, I like this more. But this is all about talking to people about their stories about it, and then the director goes and reenacts it, what happened, you know, their kind of stories. And there were some very, very creepy sequences that he did. He did a really good job with these creepy sequences of the reenactment about people telling their stories. And I also like when they talked about Hollywood's take on it, talking about the Insidious movies and things like that. It was a very, very cool documentary, though, on the subject. Would definitely recommend you guys watch this one. Very, very cool and very well made. Like I said, it's not like a total documentary. It's more of just like the stories and everything. But I like that. Next one from Film Rise as well is a documentary on people who are marrying mail order brides. It's kind of about the whole subject of mail order brides and talking to people who are, you know, having brides coming over and the brides themselves and things like that, and the kind of people that do it and why they do it and their kind of stories and things like that. I thought it was actually kind of interesting. It was like just like to hear this about, you know, the story of it, like what made people do it and things like that. And the other one is an actual movie from Film Rise as well, not a documentary. And this is Prego Land with James Caan and Danny Trejo. And this was a pretty fun movie. It's about this girl who, like, all of her friends are getting pregnant, and because they're at the age when they're starting to get pregnant, talking about their baby showers and all that kind of stuff. And they're kind of giving her all kinds of crap. Why aren't you married? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? So then one day she says, oh, I'm pregnant. So she makes it up. And it's about her kind of going and trying to have to live out this lie when everyone finds out she's pregnant, and how she's going to cover it up, and how she's going to make it like she's pregnant, and how she's going to avoid having to go to the doctor and all that kind of stuff. And Danny Trejo kind of helps him because he works the same place she is. And I don't know, it was a fun, silly movie about. I thought there might have been another movie kind of like this as well about someone pretending to be pregnant, but I thought this was actually pretty fun. The next one from, you know, Scorpion releasing is a new movie from Richard Griffin, and this is Future Justice. And I think this is one of his first that I've seen more sci-fi movies, because they're usually more like horror, like the Frankenstein's Hungry Dead and things like that. This is more of like a science fiction kind of end of the world, and it even has like a theme in it, kind of like not Mad Max, like Escape from New York and things like that. But it's basically, though, at this ship that's coming back, unless I'm mixing, I think I'm mixing up with the other one, like a ship that comes back to Earth to take back a prisoner, but when they get back to Earth, they find that like everyone is kind of vanished and something has happened. The death of Earth has happened. People are kind of hiding underground, so they get back there, and of course there's like gangs of bad people there going after them. They're trying to kill them. They kind of go and hide out in these tunnels with these other survivors, and then that gang comes after them. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like in Dawn of the Dead, when Tom Savini and the group of bikers kind of came in or coming after him. It kind of has that kind of vibe to it. Was a cool one, though. I really like his movies, though. I think he has a new one that he recently did too. But he does really, really good production value and really, really good lighting. He does like kind of the Suspiria kind of Argento with all of his lighting, which is really nice. You know, color lighting and things like that, which I like, because not a lot of movie people, you know, films now do that kind of lighting, and it's a very cool old school technique to it. The next one from Lionsgate is Black Box. It's a Kevin Sorbo movie, and this is kind of like this box where everyone that gets the box, if they, you know, they can kind of reach into it and they can get like what their deepest desires are, like if they want to be an astronaut, they want to have all this money and things like that. But of course, if you end up reaching into this box, then you end up having to pay the price, which is Kevin Sorbo's character is like kind of like this Western kind of cowboy type, coming after them, gunning them down, and killing them. So that's essentially what it is. So if you reach into this box, then you're going to have the ultimate outcome of death by him going after you. And it kind of is talking about the different kind of characters. One guy's in a hotel with his girlfriend. One guy's like a farmer. Brad Dourif is in this movie, but it's all them kind of all interconnecting between this box and things like that. I thought it was actually kind of good. It was a little bit like There's another movie like this, kind of similar to this movie. Might have been The Box, sort of, but not exactly. But there's been other things that are kind of similar vibe. But some pretty cool sequences in this one. Jason Lundis is in this movie as well. The next one from Camp Motion Pictures, and I covered it up so some people won't say, oh, there's cleavage on it. But this is one of the first Camp Motion Pictures releases that I believe has ever been Blu-ray. I believe this is one of their first releases on Blu-ray. This is Chris LaMartine, who's a good friend of mine. He was in his movie President's Day and Witch's Brew, and this is his new movie, The Call Girl of Kiah-La. And I believe I'm saying it right. I always have a hell of a time saying that name for some reason. And this is his new movie, and it's basically, though, about this book that's basically these group of these kind of people that worship the Kiah-La want to take this book and infect this woman who's a prostitute and have her kind of bring back the Kiah-La, and it's about other people who are trying to get the book and paying this guy, want this guy to make a copy of the book. There's a lot of things happening in it, a little bit hard to explain certain details of it, but I love it. It was a lot of people too that I remember working with in the past films of Chris's, so to me it was fun to watch it, and I, from being in Baltimore where this was filmed, I knew where some of the spots were and things like that, but to me, I think this is his coolest movie because it has some of the best effects of all his movies, and all the effects really worked. And I also thought it was one of the best uses of George Stover. If you guys seen a whole lot of cult films he's in it, he was outstanding in this. Like, he really stole the show for me in this movie. It was really, really, really cool in this movie, and you felt really bad for him in some of the parts too. But I've always loved George Stover ever since back in the days of Fiend. Another movie that was filmed in Baltimore in the late 70s or early, I think it might have been 80, but really cool movie. It has on here, though, the making of the movie and some outtakes and things like that, but I would definitely recommend you guys check this one out when it comes out. The next one from the Drive-In collection from Vinegar Syndrome is a double feature, and these are both kind of odd ones to explain, but it's Sweet Trash and The Hang Up. And it's basically, though, the Sweet Trash, though, is like this guy who's like works on a dock, is like by like where the ships are and things like that, and it's kind of about like the weird encounters and weird kind of people he comes across. And there's this weird plot in this movie where it's like people are killing people because they're like being said that they're being controlled by the computers, and the computers are making them do this. It's a very weird, quirky movie, and some really odd sequences in this movie, and kind of like people sleep with each other, and there's just a very odd one. The Hang Up is a little easier to explain, though, and it's a cop who went, like, these two cops, and they go undercover, dress as women, and go into, like, where prostitutes are, and like where people are at clubs and things like that, try and get men and come and sleep with them, and then they whip out the guns and say, oh, Vice Squad and things like that. But then, of course, the cop ends up actually falling in love with this one woman who's a prostitute, so it's kind of like him kind of not sure what to do and kind of getting involved in this whole network of all this stuff, and he's trying to stop all this, but yet at the same time he's in it because he's starting to like this girl and things like that. But as you know, with Vinegar Syndrome, always have amazing transfers on both of these. Like, I would love them to do a documentary sometime about like where they find the prints, like how they find them. Because, like, to me, I would love to see that, like find the prints, because their prints are in amazing condition, and I would love to, something would be cool to see that, like just be called like Vinegar Syndrome, how we do it, or something like that. Just finding all the stuff, how they track them down, because I think people would like to see that. Sometimes that'd be cooler than almost some of the releases, just because I feel like there's such a story behind some of the movies. And the last one, this one is from Unearthed Films, and I got to cover up the cover a lot because there's a lot of really gross stuff on this movie. It's a very, very gross movie. This is American Guinea Pig, Bouquet of Guts and Blood. I wanted to see this one because I Ate the Chosen One, who's a friend of Wet Movies, and he's a YouTuber as well and makes rap music and things like that. He's always been a cool guy. He's in this movie as one of the main killers in this movie. But like I said, this is exceptionally gross and exceptionally not my kind of movie at all. I don't have any problem with these kind of movies, but I can't take them, to be honest with you. I can't get through them because I have no problem with gore, but I don't really like when it's like a movie that's kind of made like a snuff film. I just never have been into that. I want to see it mainly because of the effects. The effects are very well done, but it's just so gross. It's basically just these guys that kidnap these girls and are basically cutting them apart. It's very disgusting. It's like well done for what it is, but it's either you want to watch this or you don't, you know, and that's all I can say about it. But it has on here a bunch of making ofs and like the raw footage behind the scenes, like the raw takes and stuff like that. Interviews with Marcus Cook, who's great, you know, did the effects on Girls Gone Dead. Is one of the best artists out there for super gore kind of effects, but just not my scene. But anyway, though, guys, that's all for this DVD Blu-ray update, guys. And thanks again for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you guys later.